Hi, everyone. Welcome to the TLDC interview show. That's the Training, Learning, and Development Conference. I'm Rick Zanotti, and today I've got a great guest. Stay tuned. Here we go. That was a short intro because our guest is Trish Uhl, and Trish Uhl and I can actually go on for 3 hours without even breaking a sweat. So,
not even taking a breath.
No, we just go. We just go. I don't even know if we ask each other. We just talk, both of us at the same time. Trish, how are you?
I'm well, Rick. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Anytime I'm with you, I'm doing great. So this is always fun having you on. It's been too long since you've been on, but this is a special event. The Training, Learning, and Development Conference is in its first year. It's going to be held October 3rd through 5th at I think it's the San Diego Mission Bay Hyatt. It's a nice place, and the area is beautiful down there. And you're going to be speaking.
I am. I'm very excited.
Yeah, what are some of the subjects you're going to talk about?
I've got a couple of different things that I'm actually doing at the conference. So for this inaugural event, we're really trying to change everything up in the conference format. So there's really a whole big application piece to this. It's not just about content and consumption. And so one of the things that I'm doing at the conference, actually with many of my peers who are also speaking, is that we're doing immersion activities where people are actually going to be able to get into a room, roll up their sleeves, and be able to take action against their action plans that they've put together as part of the conference. And so to frame that up, even before the conference started, even before we get to San Diego, is within a few days before the conference, is I'm actually facilitating an online session to help people put together their strategic plan for what it is that they want to get out of the conference. So that's going to be for any of the registered delegates, is they'll have access to that pre-conference session online before we even get to San Diego, so that they can start really thinking through what it is that they want to be able to do and what they want to be able to get as outcomes from the TLDC event.
That sounds great. Now, you're also talking, or you've gotten into some couple of different things since the last time we talked. You were doing a lot of CPLP training at one point and running a lot of the programs. And a lot of people don't know you have an IT background. And what you're doing now kind of falls in place with your IT background and your training background, which is pretty interesting. Tell us a little bit about what Trish Uhl is up to now.
Oh, well, thanks. One of the things that I've always liked about CPLP, or the way that I got into the Certified Professional for Learning and Performance, was that with the CPLP, it was a way of being able to put in standards for the first time, professional standards for people in the learning profession. And that actually hails back to my IT background. I mean, I've been an IT professional now for longer than we've had professional qualifications in the IT field. And so that's why I understood the need for why it is that we needed to reach some level of maturity and needed to be able to really start to step up as an emerging profession. And you and I have had many conversations before about this transformation of training and development from a function to learning and performance as a capability. Mm-hmm. And so in alignment with all of that, where I've evolved now is beyond the CPLP and have started getting into predictive analytics. And how do we start to get maturity in two basic areas? One, in evaluation, right? It's time for us to really build our evaluation capability maturity. And number two is in analytics. So we've done a lot with descriptive analytics before. We've barely, in the learning industry, gotten into diagnostic analytics, which starts moving us into that, that performance consulting kind of frame. Mm-hmm. And then now we're starting to get into where we can get into predictive analytics using predictive models. And so that's my big session, inaugural session, is me presenting a case study about work that I've been working on now for more than a year on predictive analytics projects.
And it's really interesting because a lot of people think that the learning management system pretty much launches a course and says, did you complete or not? Which is what 90% of the people do with them. They're missing out on what they could really get out of a good LMS, which is all of the analytics, which is, like you said, getting to the point where they can make it predictive. And that doesn't mean you know exactly what they're going to do, but it means you have an idea of where things are going, what the trends are, and how to improve performance based on those trends. But we don't see a lot of that in the industry.
Well, we're starting to, so my focus, I've been working with a specific algorithm and with a specific team of people around a specific algorithm. Let me take a step back for a moment. So an algorithm contains computations that are based on factors that contribute to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So in this particular case, I've been working with Ken Phillips on the Predictive Learning Analytics, the PLA algorithm, which basically says, how do we predict down to an individual training participant or delegate who will and who won't most likely transfer what they just learned back on the job. And if they have, if they're not likely to transfer what they learned back on the job, then what is hindering them? What's the barrier? What are some of the barriers to their success? And how do we then put together recommended actions that are either training related or non-training related that the organization can use in order to be able to increase that learning transfer? Because it could be the best training in the world. It could be the most solid instructional design. It could be exactly the right training to close gaps in skill and knowledge that's needed within the organization. But if people don't take what it is that they've learned and actually put it into practice, go from in classroom to in practice on the job, then it loses its value because it loses its effectiveness. And so we're using this algorithm in order to put those predictions together down to an individual.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And something that's needed, because I've seen too many companies just take very simple approaches to analytics and really to the point of no approach. It's just, okay, these 500 people took that, these 1,000 took that, they passed or they failed. What do we do now? Oh, nothing, but we now know that they passed or failed. So how do you take it beyond that? Because they spend fortunes on LMSs and then they don't use them for anything more than just a launcher. It's sort of interesting. And I think that's actually gone backwards from what it was probably 15 years ago, where they were actually using more analytics back then. And I'm seeing less and less of it now. That's why I'm glad you're getting into this, because there's a real need for people to understand what you can do with the data and how it can actually be useful, like you said, not only to the individual, but to the company.
Absolutely. And what's happening now is that we've got a lot of people that are coming up with algorithms that are taking a look at the learning process, at different milestones. So for instance, Ken, and using the predictive learning analytics methodology and the PLA algorithm, is taking a look at specifically that point in time for training transfer. That's the root question or the milestone that particular algorithm is focused on. Now, if you take a look at what Jenny Dearborn is doing at SAP, she's got the PAM framework, the PAM framework, where she's using that for performance analytics. And then that's a much more robust, It's a much more robust, you have to have a higher level of maturity within the organization and with your evaluation capabilities in order to do that. But my point is that there are a number of different algorithms that are out there. Some of them are diagnostic, some of them are predictive, some of them are starting to get into even higher levels of analytics like prescriptive. But how do we begin to string those together into workplace learning analytics, where we can use them in order to scale down or scale up depending on the projects that it is that we're working at? And so then that's becoming more and more my forte, is how do we put those together, again, with this evaluation capability maturity, and then be able to really have a much better understanding of, training program, business result, what happens in between? And then how do we make sure that we're controlling it and managing to measurements going forward, rather than just looking back as we do traditionally with measurement and evaluation, looking back in hindsight after things have already happened? How do we have the same kind of foresight and insight where we can make corrective actions as we go to make sure that we're producing the outcomes and the results that the business wants to get as a return on their investment?
Now, do you think some of this is going to be put into LMSs in the future, where they'll actually have some of the algorithms incorporated?
Oh, I think definitely. And that's already happening with some of the LMSs right now. I mean, I know of some folks that are working on, again, different algorithms to address other questions within the training process. And it's already embedded within those technology platforms. So that is definitely happening already. And what it does is it begins to give the machines intelligence, right? So some of the platforms, the technology platforms, the learning management systems out there that are starting to use algorithms are using them in a way to make the learning experience adaptive depending on how conditions change and depending on the behaviors of the individual users that are going in and using that technology. So we're creating adaptive machines. What I want to do is create adaptive people. I want to continue to create people who can learn, unlearn, and relearn, because that's what we need to do in a world that's just this steady state of disruption.
So do you want to call that performance plasticity?
Ooh, what?
What? You like that?
Okay,
huh?
now it's going to have to be a 3-hour show.
Right? Okay, well,
now the gauntlet is thrown.
Yeah. Okay, so remember, at the show we're going to argue about that for about 3 hours. So you have to come to the show to get that.
I'll remember. I'll make a note right now.
Yeah, performance plasticity. Well, everybody's heard of neuroplasticity, but we're talking neural combined with that algorithm, and you got kind of performance plasticity.
I love it. Yeah. So it's very exciting to me because this has gone particularly well. We've been working with one client in particular that is the focus of the case study that has to do with a company in the UK where there's a lot of disruption that's happening in their industry because of deregulation. So they're in a situation where they either get their workforce moving in the direction that they need them to go, or they've got a real chance of putting the organization at risk.
Right.
The same thing too, now this is not going to be part of the case study, but we actually just launched another initiative earlier this spring in Dubai with one of the government agencies there. So it's been a lot of fun to not only see in different industries how it is that this is really playing out, but to see how it's playing out in different parts of the world.
That's true. And actually, where you have large corporations, this probably is best suited for large corporations, but then as you fine-tune it, it can work for any corporation or agency or whatever else.
That's exactly right. So in this particular case, the algorithms that I'm primarily focused on right now, currently, would be for kind of like the bigger ticket, kind of training items, or the training initiatives rather. And that would be things like leadership development, diversity and inclusion, safety, resilience. In Dubai right now, it's happiness training. So it would be things that are, number one, probably a lot of people going through it, and/or has a very hefty price tag, right? So again, you want to know before the end of that time horizon, are we even on track for making it to that business result? And if not, what do we need to be able to do about it in order to have that kind of traction or that kind of formative evaluation and that kind of control as you're moving, again, many of these, like leadership development, right, has long time horizons. The other thing that we're really focused on in my work right now, and particularly with this team that I'm going to talk about in the case study, is we're focused on soft skills, what we traditionally call soft skills. And in this particular case, we are, the case study is around resilience training. How do you develop personal resilience in the workplace? And what this organization is trying to do is to develop a resilient culture, a resilient workforce, because of all of the disruptive change that's happening due to deregulation and other drivers within that particular industry and that part of the world.
That's really interesting. And when you said measuring happiness, that's such an elusive thing to measure, because look at people. They're happy for one moment, they're miserable for another one, then they're happy again, they're miserable, happy, miserable. And it's so hard to catch them at one of those for any extended period of time, because people, like you said, you have to develop resilience to realize you're not going to be happy every moment, but you have to be in a certain place where you're not unhappy either. It's interesting.
Well, it is. And so real quick on that, because I just find this particularly fascinating. So the reason why the United Arab Emirates is so focused on happiness is because they're staging huge events that are meant to attract tourists to the area for the first time. So for instance, they are hosting, Dubai is going to be the host city for World Expo 2020, which will have an estimated 25 million tourists actually come to Dubai for the first time ever. It'll be their first experience, not only in Dubai, but they estimate that out of 25 million, 80% will be in the region for the first time. And so what they want to make sure is that people have this like fantastic experience. I mean, that's why any country or any city hosts World Expo or the Olympics or, you know, any kind of like huge event like that, is to draw in not only as a one-off, but then to have people have such a great experience that they come back and bring more people. And so how do you do that without measurement? And that's what it is that we're bringing on the happiness scale. And on the resilience scale is we have measurement on the individual level, then we have measurement on the team or department level, and then we also have measurement at the organizational level. And we're using the power of predictive analytics in order to make sure that it's insights going forward so that organizations can take corrective action as things are unfolding, rather than just hindsight and wishing that it had a better opportunity by looking back.
You know, it's interesting that we're actually hosting another World's Expo. It's the first time since Vancouver in '86. I don't think there's been any World Expo since then.
Yeah, there has.
There?
Milan actually hosted World Expo 2015.
2015, poor marketing. I didn't even hear about that one.
You know,
the expos are fun.
If I had understood this faster, I would have been on a plane to Milan myself.
Yeah, I didn't even know they had that. That could have been actually fun and interesting. But yeah, the last one I remember was '86 Vancouver, which was fun. It was actually a very good expo. And then before that, I remember the New York World's Fair, which was what was it, 64 and 5. That was fun. I was a kid then. It was great. We used to go at school all the time. It was actually really fun. But
yeah, so big events and memorable. I mean, so here it is, decades later, right? And this is something that you remember attending and remember in a fond, you know, way. Those are exactly the types of memories that they're trying to build with these types of events. Certainly in Dubai and within the United Arab Emirates. And again, that's a lot of, you know, they put billions with sponsors into the effort to even win becoming host city in the first place. Again, very similar to the Olympics. So there's a lot of money and a lot that's at stake in being able to make sure that that's right. And again, if you think about it, long time horizon, from the time that Dubai first found out that they were the host city, and I was actually in Dubai at the time that the announcement came down, you know, it was 7 years. So from they got the announcement in 2013, and then you're talking about 2020. So, I mean, you're talking about 7 years. So how do you make sure that the way that you're developing your people, because it's job creation of 277,000 new jobs as part of that one event alone. How do you make sure that you're going to ring that bell at the end of a 7-year run? Again, if you don't have milestones and measurements that are in, and making sure, again, that it's looking forward and taking corrective action rather than looking back and, you know, it's just lessons learned and, oh, good, the next time we're staging World Expo 2020, we'll just try it again.
Her name is Trish Uhl, TLDC, October 3rd through 5th. Get to meet her. She's fun. I think you'll really enjoy it. Trish is a smart person. She knows a lot. Trust me. Trish, I look forward to seeing you at the show. We're going to be streaming live there, so we'll be there for a couple of days, maybe 3. And definitely let's spend some time together at the show. And remember, if you're watching, sign up for the show. It's going to be a great show, good people there, and Trish will be there. Don't miss her.
Thanks, Rick. Yay cake.
Till next time, I'll see you in about a little over a month.
Sounds good.
Looking forward to it. Well, have a good one, Trish. And again, it's the TLDC, the Training, Learning, and Development Conference, October 3rd through 5th, San Diego at the Hyatt Mission Bay. Mission Bay is beautiful. Have a good time. It's right near SeaWorld. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.